What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ladies Who Bronché, the podcast where we have conversations at the brunch table that people don't want to have at the dinner table, but at the brunch table, anything goes. I am your host, Julissa Contreras, and this week I'm hella excited because our guest is somebody who I've been following for years and have had the honor to integrate and create and death and embody with in this past year, which has been such a beautiful experience. She is a multidisciplinary sacred artist, many intersections in her work. And she also happens to be a Dominicana Cubana, which we love. Truly, what I want to say about her is that her essence glows and really does touch beyond the realms of the work that she creates in a way that really invites others to see the light within themselves and really remain in the fight to walk into their glory, which is not the superficial things that we think they are. It's really just being in tune with yourself in a way that is just so beautiful. And I appreciate the hell out of her. So, Melanie, who the fuck are you?
Ime, that was such a beautiful introduction. Like, for
Yeah,
real. Like,
deserving.
thank you. Like, I need that to be my wake up alarm ringer. Who the fuck am I? I am daughter of Mercedes and Henry, sister to Gregory, mom to Ava, wife to Huey, Cubana Dominicana. So crazy in high school. I used to say I was Cubinican. Please. Please.
It's
Please.
like a screen name, Cubinican 212.
Cubinican for life. I am native New Yorker, did live in Jersey and influenced my experience a lot. Never counts out Jersey. Yeah, lover of life, multidisciplinary sacred artist, teacher, educator, energy healer, seer, and just somebody who really approaches life from the perspective of, our existence is not only political, but like innately spiritual. And so I think we'll get into the conversation because I don't want to get too much into it now, but like our decisions are what influence this entire experience. So I'm super excited to be here.
Yes. And I'd mentioned to you briefly before we got started that I pulled a card to guide us in the intention of this conversation. And we got the skunk, which I think is so interesting because at first when I fell out, I was like, the skunk, oh no. Because we as humans, we don't really fuck with the skunks, right?
Exactly.
Because we fear their essence. We don't want to be harmed by their smell. But I think it's a beautiful metaphor for what the skunk medicine really represents, which is this idea of, yes, walking your walk and talking your talk and allowing your essence, your smell, your stink to come from a place of connectedness and self-assuredness rather than being something that you are using to attack or take going on ego trips to control others or to make others feel some type of way. And I think that that's a beautiful framework for what we want to talk about today, because we are going to be touching on authenticity, but not just authenticity from the brain space and like an analytical space or your brand, quote unquote, but really what is yours and what is yours to create and what is yours to embody and emit. And I feel like a lot of your work really touches on that. So I'm hella excited to get into those. But before we jump into that, let's pretend we're sitting at our brunch table, and I have a couple of brunch questions for you. So my first question is, what is your favorite brunch plate?
My favorite brunch plate. Listen, I am again Cubinican, right? But I love me some Mexican food and I've done the ancestry DNA. I got no Mexican in me, so I don't know where it comes from. I love me some chilaquiles. I'm not a breakfast burrito girl, but chilaquiles
Yes.
any day. I also do love me some eggs Benedict. It has to be very specifically, I am gluten free for health reasons, not for vanity reasons. So it has to be gluten free eggs Benedict, the hollandaise, the sauce,
Yeah.
so good. Um, yeah, anything that has like a saucy egg, but like really cooked, like crisp on the edge, soft in the interior.
Yes.
That's me. That's me
I
right there.
love that. I love that. I love chilaquiles. So, with your chilaquiles or your eggs Benedict, what are you drinking?
I hate a mimosa.
Oh,
Hot take.
oh, hot take.
I
Hot.
truly hate a mimosa. Do not like champagne. Love me a mezcal margarita or a mezcal.
Ooh,
Anything mezcal cocktail.
yes.
If it's not mezcal or like a margarita, I love me a Hugo spritz. It's fuck Aperol spritz all the way.
It's a
Sorry,
Hugo
Aperol.
spritz. You put me on. I
Okay.
have no idea what that is.
So Aperol spritz is like Prosecco mixed with the Aperol, right? Which to me tastes like medicina. Like you might as well just be sipping Robitussin. A Hugo spritz is instead of the Aperol, it's elderflower liqueur. So
Oh,
it's softer. So it's like his gentler cousin. The Aperol spritz is like an Aries, and like the Hugo spritz is like a Pisces. So I fuck with it. It's delicious. It's very soft. It's very like light. I'm a summer baby, so yeah. It's like if it's not like something soft like that, it's a mezcal margarita. I don't have an in between, obviously.
I love that. And mezcal is another one. Is another one that for a while the smokiness, I was like, I don't know about that. And then one of my good friends, Katie Longmire, shout out to Katie, was like, "You're drinking the wrong mezcal," and
Mm.
like really put me on. And another transformative, corrective emotional experience for
Corrective
me,
emotional experience.
which is a phrase I got from Colin. Shout out to Colin at Queer Cosmo.
Alan.
Love it. All right. So tell me, what was it like going out to eat when you were a kid? What was that experience?
Going out to eat. So I grew up uptown. Shout out to Washington Heights. Before moving to Jersey in my adolescence, you know, my parents doing the "we got to get you out of the hood" thing. And so going out to eat, I went. I think I went to a lot of the very typical like '90s restaurants. Like we loved a Sizzler. My God,
Yes.
do you remember the Sizzler?
Yes. Absolutely. I got baby pictures in Sizzler.
Exactly. So it was a lot of like comfort foods like that. It wasn't very like fine dining, our regular like malecongs, like, right? To have the like rice, beans, and chicken and like our traditional meals. Very much about gathering and talking. Meals are very like very cliche, but like meals were really what like brought us together. And yeah, I miss that. I miss that. You know, when you grow older, you start to develop your own family, and like life gets busy, and like to gather everybody in ceremony and in ritual like that around food is really really special.
I love that. And so at the table, what's the table talk? ¿Qué bochinche are you guys having at the table?
Bueno, okay. Growing up, it was definitely bochinche about who's doing what and qué hizo esta and like so funny because we weren't having like mental health conversations back then, but like we were talking about how crazy people are. Now as an adult, I think it's very much like going to brunch is like catch ups, right? So it's anywhere between like my God, what the hell's going on in the world? And there's like some like laughter and like whatever's hilarious and whatever's going on in pop culture, and also some bochinche about like things that are happening to people. Most recently, it's been like, oh my God, did you see what's happening with so and so? Who are people who are like no longer in our lives that we've like evolved past the exes, the ex friends, and like a little bit of that. As much as I want to be the spiritual, like non-judgmental, we don't gossip person. Like took a vow as a Kundalini yoga teacher, we don't gossip because it's unholy. I'm a Gemini, okay? I want to hear. I'm not going to talk too much, but I do want to hear it. I do want to hear it. I do want to hear it. So,
And honestly, like, isn't there a thing as such as sacred gossip? I would like to I would like to create the lane where it really comes, and I say that as a joke, right? No, gossip is definitely something that we don't want to align with, but it is true that I think in our human processes, in our reflection and releasing, that we often find ourselves in positions that we're commenting on things that like is our opinion on something else. And so I like to say, if I'm going to gossip about you, then I have to fix my tongue to pray for you as well, right? Like, and so for me, it's really about like, all right, I can have all these feelings. I'm gonna talk my shit, then I'm gonna pray over that energy and release it. But I'm a human, baby. I'm gonna have to talk.
yeah, exactly. We are flawed. And like, I really am not the like, let's talk shit type of person, but just like, did you observe what I observed?
Exactly. It's observations. It's reflections. You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. So now we're going to move into our cheers section where we shout out dope people, organization, or spaces doing dope shit. And in honor of the sacred space that we have been holding in this year, I want to shout out Kripalu and our sacred artist community, led by David and Iset. And I have to say, like, aside even from our sacred artist container, Kripalu is such a sacred land and such a sacred space that has been around for so many years and served so many populations. But I think that over the years, it's been clear that they have evolved the communities that they reach and the way that they handle their programming. And so I think that, you know, it's more than just like a yoga healing center. It really is a sacred space where people can come and release and regenerate and connect with the land in a way that is quite transformative, right? And I think what I also love about Kripalu is it meets you where you're at. I can definitely say when I got there versus how I feel when I go now, and excited to go back in June for our Love Fest that we will be doing. It really taught me about the patience of integration, but also the energy of Swami Kapralu on the land has been so gentle to me. And I think that oftentimes when you are on healing journeys, or even when you're trying to start anything new like yoga, right? At least for me, I think it's my Aries moon. I have this rigidness about wanting to be perfect and doing it the right way and embodying like what the teacher embodies, like on day one, in moment one. And so for me, I think it was really a hard stumble in, but now I've really found my flow in that space. So I'm super grateful for that space. And as for a sacred artist, well, that is just such a collection of beautiful minds and souls that are each on their own journey. But like collectively, we are giving each other the medicine that we need at all times. And I think that that is just the most powerful way to create. And I really hope that that practice is something that evolves and scales, right? Like beyond us, that other spaces can hold space for creators in that way because it's so needed. You're part of this, Melanie. What has your experience been at Kripalu?
Yeah, I think you said a lot of it already. Like you put the the tail on the donkey in a way. It was definitely a hard stumble in for me too, in that I was used to working by myself for many years, and I don't think I ever really. I don't think I was promoting myself or marketing myself as an artist either. And so to get there and just to not even get so deep into the bio and just people being like, oh yeah, you're an artist. Like what I'm doing is like, yes, it's all these mediums, but like the root of it is art. Like this is medicine. And so to be in this space with all these other people who are also have their own form of medicine, is almost like we're building this very beautiful like jarabe, like this concoction of like something that's like changing the world. And I see it time and time again when we join together. There's also the land that has been, oh my God, just so incredible to like leave the city. I'm tuning in from the heart of Brooklyn, New York City, and like to leave and to be amongst all these insanely gorgeous trees. It's almost like we can hear them, right? Julissa, we go on these like midnight walks and we
We be
go and
having,
like
yeah, we tree huggers and what?
we go and talk to the trees and we're just like, yeah, that's my homie. That's my favorite tree. And that's my other favorite tree. And like, hold on, we can't go home yet because I got to go leave an offering to my favorite tree. And it's just like, yeah, it's just a regular thing. Absolutely go do your thing. That has been so regenerative. Such a big part of my remembrance. Like, wait, we are nature too.
Mhm.
Right. And like we need to nurture ourselves this way too. Like if I'm giving an offering to the tree, what kind of offering am I making to myself as I'm on this process? And so it's been really beautiful. I'm super excited for Love Fest and to finish, but I'm also kind of, it's like bittersweet. It's kind of sad, kind of sad to like come to this ending. But I think I personally have definitely made lifelong friendships there. So it's super beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. The embodiment of our artistic truth, especially in this political climate, has been super powerful, especially because I think for those of us who struggled with that idea of releasing some of what is happening in the world, not as a like, oh, nothing is happening and I'm just going to love and light my way through what needs to be a revolution, but asking, what is my actual role in this revolution and how is my self care, preservation, and groundedness actually the way to my most powerful self throughout that revolution, including my creations, right? So that if we are lost in our art, it's not like we're lost in our art and disconnected. We are actually lost in our art and collecting and discovering and excavating what needs to come through us in order to answer the call of the moment in the area that we are called to answer that call, which I think is just such a beautiful angle to flip it on. So Melanie, what about you? Who do you want to cheers to this week?
I want to cheers to myself. Is that
Yes,
okay?
absolutely.
I am going to cheers to myself. I am speaking about art. literally today is 30 days to my birthday, and I have been on this journey to sharing a new way of like creating art on social media, where I'm sharing 36 things that I've learned in 36 years thus far. I'm turning 36 on June 6th. And so it's been so like talk about like creating art and it being regenerative. I've had this really difficult relationship being a spiritual practitioner, well-being practitioner on social media, where like a lot of the things I talk about aren't very popular, right? And they are, I don't create art that triggers, but my art is triggering. And so to be able to make connections to sustain a community and like grow the following, all these like superficial things that actually do matter in the business world, has been pretty difficult. And so to basically commit myself to creating something that's really real and really raw and like break through all my internal patterns that say, you know, if this doesn't get enough likes or enough views, it's not worthy, right? It doesn't mean anything, has been really special. And it seems to also be helping a lot of people, which has been super, super amazing. So I want to shout out myself for like receiving the download. You ever get like that, just that feeling of like receiving something and like doing it? And then there's just the satisfaction of like witnessing yourself creating that alignment for yourself is just really special. So shout out to me.
Yes, shout outs to you. And I have to say the content like over the years has always been great and excellent. But there is a power and excellence that is coming through your work right now. And I know that it is absolutely tied to the ways in which you've grounded your artistry and not like taking it completely away from metrics because your videos look fucking great. You do have an audience that loves and trusts you. But I think that the gift is even, let's say, if it was happening in the reverse, where it's like the work was sacred, but like the conventional parts of the business were maybe
Yeah.
having a front seat. That was what your journey was meant to be because now
Yeah.
you have that foundation, but what you're offering them is pure medicine and is exactly what they need. And it is not tied to all of those egotistical things. And how do I know that? I know that because there's so many times where I open, my Instagram or whatever, and I see what you're talking about and it's something that has come up for me just like 10 minutes ago when I was at my altar or saying my
Happening.
affirmation.
Yeah.
So like when that happens I get really excited because I'm like, all right bitch, you allowed to integrate it because look, Melanie talk about the same shit, you ain't crazy, right? Which is what I think really I would love to see there be a cultural shift among creators, especially those who are creating content online around healing, spirituality, which astrology, even whatever the intersection is, because we are like Avengers in a way. We all have our own storyline, origin stories, and movies, right? But when we come together, there is a bigger mission, there is a bigger Goliath that we are battling. And this is going to move us into our Tuta Loca es section, where we shout out motherfuckers who are doing the most because this new world of like social media gurus, right? There are those who feel like pure light and embodiment, where we can say, yes, like I am doing my sacred work off camera and I am receiving things that are being shared online. So I know that there is a pure intention that is being shared there. But then there are people who, let's say, would see your video and be like, oh, damn, now I can't make that video. Or, oh, now I have to outdo her video because
Right.
I want to say the same thing, but she ain't say it how I'm gonna say it. So I'm gonna do, but it's motivated by this like icky energy of competition when it's like, we are all here to serve somebody because there's enough people for everybody to serve.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so for me, that spiritual leadership without performance is something that is lacking in the space. I'm curious, what have your observations been about this landscape?
My God. I think without throwing too much shade, I have firsthand experience. I have
No gossip.
firsthand no, no gossip, no gossip, no gossip. No, I really think I have firsthand experience in this, in that I experienced it first with my teachers. I've had a lot of spiritual teachers. I'm certified in and out through in many different modalities and many different mediums, and like I've had amazing teachers who I will definitely like honor as like my elders and like leaders in my life for through time. But I've also had teachers and people who I've paid to teach me who have very obviously on the journey been rooted in the money and have been rooted in the perfection and the performance and like seeming like they're an expert in X, Y, and Z topic when really it was all about the money all along. It was all about the vanity stuff. And so I, it's frustrating. It's really angers me, but also I never discount that that is also a learning experience, right? Like, unfortunately, I had to spend, and I'm talking about thousands of dollars. So that's also something we can talk about, is that like, is money, which I definitely have a few things to say about that with spirituality, but spending all this money to sit at this person's feet and like truly observe and honor their work, for their work to end up being bullshit, for their work to end up being something that I can Google or get on ChatGPT and ask a question about. Like, no true experience, no true expertise, because it's all about the vanity metrics and like what it seems like, what they're wearing, what the pictures look like, amazing websites, being on all the podcasts, being, you know, talked about in magazines. But when you're like sitting with them, there's no essence, there's no aura. One of my favorite things that one of my favorite teachers ever taught me, my Kundalini yoga teacher, shout out to Siri Rishi Kaur, she said, you cannot teach something that is not in your aura.
Hmm.
If it doesn't exist in your energetic field, you can't impart it on somebody else. You could say you got it, but you don't got it, right? I think watching the Met Gala recently, ASAP Rocky said, it's not on you, it's in you,
Yeah.
right? You can't create that. And like, spirituality is swag, that's natural swag. Like, you can't create that. And so that's been truly, truly frustrating for me.
First of all, I think that this idea of it's not on you and it's in you, I be saying that all the time. I don't know who's originated that phrase. I love ASAP said it recently. And I'm just like, yeah, because there is something about a spiritual path that calls you. You don't dial it in, it calls
Exactly.
you, right? In fact, the moment that you might think you're calling it in might be a moment where you are actually just surrendering, that you are saying, I am finally going to allow myself to explore and embody something that has tickled me, and my intuition has always tugged in particular moments in time because it was calling me to do better and know better, because it's already within me to show up in that way, versus wow, I'm seeing all of these people. Or I think about the iconic Walter Mercado, right? And this, like, and like, like, I think that he's an embodiment of somebody where it's like, it was in him, right? Like, this essence, this flow. And so I think people see somebody's originality like that. And then they say, ooh, what is my Walter? Like, how am I going to, is it the jewelries? Is it, pounding a million crystals on myself to like prove this is what I do? Which is not to say the crystals aren't working and that there's zero action that happens, but intention is everything. And so, like, yeah, the way you wear a crystal does matter based on how you're activating your own energy and aura, right? Like it, and I think people lose that, and they just allow symbolism and things that they're seeing with their eyes to indicate the validity of a person, including likes and shares and things like that. There are spiritual practitioners and people who are hella popular, and while they may be tapping into certain truths, like the deeper essence of what you might need as medicine may not be in their wheelhouse, right? And so to say that you are working with a particular practitioner and feeling good about it, like, there are certain times where I've like hopped on lives or things of certain practitioners who, like, the practitioners are legit, but like, I'll read the comment sections and I get worried about the level of like obsession and devotion that people have with the practitioner rather than with themselves at their altars or out in nature, right? Because there's so many different intersections of practice. And I think that that's another thing, is that any practitioner who is like, no, my way is the way and the only way, red flag.
Super red flag,
Red
super
flag.
red flag.
And you mentioned money. And so I want to give you space to say more about what you're saying with money. Because for me, that was always a big thing where I was like, whoa, like, rejection is protection. There were moments where I did not have the funds to perhaps work with particular people who I was like, oh, they seem so cool. They give all this wisdom. I wonder what they have to say about me. But I didn't have the coin to invest to do those things or to have those Reiki sessions or whatever. But it turned out to be protection because I was not meant to get that medicine from those spaces. But I'm curious your experience with people and how sometimes they really do overcharge.
Yeah, I have a lot of different perspectives when it comes to this, as somebody who does have a high cost offering, right? But like, when if I'm talking about my own work as a spiritual practitioner, I've been doing readings for 5 years now, and like, my readings are pretty up there. However, talking about marketing, I also have a marketing background. So like, I make sure that if that's my most expensive offering, what else am I offering that's free or low cost for people to engage with that's has similar medicine. My red flag is always when a practitioner's all of their offerings are in the three digits, and it's just like, who is this work for? right? Who is this work really for? If you have nothing that's accessible to anybody who can't afford working with you. And so it just ties it in with like colonialism and like white supremacy and like all that is just always a red flag. I also have the perspective of like, yeah, I'm not going to lower my prices for this thing because in the background of my mind, we come from a culture where it's just like, oh, as brujas, as practitioners, as healers, we shouldn't charge, right? Or we shouldn't charge that much. So there's so many different like dualities and nuances to like that I hold within me. So I always make sure that I have like offerings that are of many different price points and they're all helpful. Like I'm doing this series for free on Instagram, and I'm doing it for me, and it's super helpful for me and like all the versions of myself that this is coming from, but it seems to be super helpful for people as well. And I think that's how it should be done, right? That I think the stepping out of this very individualistic approach to spirituality is important, especially in the day and age that we are living in right now. Like approaching this from a much more worldwide view is super important, and I don't think that's happening even still.
I heard someone online talking about how in this day and age, everyone's call to action for the revolution is to like line up their pockets as much as possible because they want to be protected from whatever will come,
Yeah.
as opposed to, you know, just sort of being present in a way where it's like, yes, make your money, like protect yourself, like honor your village and what those needs are. But if you are really trying to offer something, like make sure that you are grounded and aligned in a way that what you are offering can't be questioned, right? Where somebody might be like, oh, you know, $200 for a Reiki session, let's say, for example, what the fuck? But if you as a practitioner are like, oh, honey, but you're not counting the time and energy I spend praying at my altar, making sure my energy is aligned and cleaned, and I am living in the same world as you. So if you had a hard day because you saw something on the news that shook you, what's to say that I didn't? But I needed to make sure that I was able to show up in a particular way that you are not serving, which is not to say I'm better than you. It's more like I'm involving in those costs is the involvement that has to happen with how I am living my life as opposed to just how I'm showing up for this session. And I think that that's also the value that a lot of practitioners put on themselves that I absolutely agree with is like there is a lifestyle and a way of being that is necessary in order to keep my work at its purest. And so I'm trying to meet that. But of course, like I can share wisdoms and to your point, give offerings that are meeting you at different intersections of price points so that you're not lost. Because at the end of the day, I, the practitioner, am not the God and the person who's doing it. I'm the vessel. So, as a vessel, right, even if all I'm giving you is like, oh, a tarot card reading online or like a general like card of the day, or like to your point, your series, I'm sharing my medicine and wisdom with you. If you are aligned and met with the moment of your awakening and stepping into your power, you're gonna see the medicine in that. You're going to feel inspired by that. And you might not need me for a reading. Like you might not
Exactly.
actually need that. You might just need me to share something in which you can see yourself in, and then you will embark in your journey. And then maybe down the line, there's somebody else you're going to need a reading from, and maybe they are cheaper, or maybe they're not. But at that point, you are in a practice where your discernment is more aligned with what you need and not just with what your eyes want. It's like they say, eating with your eyes. I feel like a lot of people are online looking at spiritual practitioners and eating with their eyes and just
Yeah.
taking from everywhere in a way that isn't necessarily aligned unless you verified that and then it's aligned for you, and then great and aming and do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with like spiritual materialism is so real.
Hmm.
And it's not just about like, yes, having seen so many clients throughout the years, like there are people who like obsess about the crystals and like, what should I be wearing? Or like, I'm a yoga teacher. So people are like, should I wear all white to class? And should I buy an outfit? And I'm just like, chill. Should I buy a reading with you? And I'm just like,
Hmm.
chill, have that discernment. And if you don't have that discernment, take the time to engage with the free stuff, read the books, listen to the podcast, things that are accessible to you so that you can develop that discernment, so that you can get to the step of like, yeah, if you want to do a one-on-one session with me, let's do it when you are ready. When you are ready, is I think is really important.
Yeah, so you got to know when you're ready, which I also think is a wonderful transition into our plate of the day, which again, we are staying sort of in this theme of, you know, being connected to spirit, but in this case, holding complexity while being in that connection. We are living in a time that is jarring intentionally, like we are being mocked with. Like, we are just being thrown left and right, whether you're talking about the political administration in the United States, whether you're talking about, I don't know, the centuries of harm that have been going on in society, and the intersection in which you might find yourself, whether that is poverty, whether that is something that is called a disability by others, right? Whether that is, you know, just racial harm, gender harm, like name an intersection, it goes under that umbrella. And it is difficult to be a pure light spirit navigating this world and trying to be embodied through the vessel that you are in and not let those factors influence you. And so I find a lot of people get tripped up in that part of their journey, right? Where the humanity and ego and intuition all meet each other. And I just really quickly, like, I think the idea of ego death is really beautiful. And I think that there are ways in which we do need to fight our ego. But I also think that part of healing is being in healthy relationship with your ego, that actually you need to know your ego and love it, even when it is stank as fuck, right?
Deeply.
You know, I'm curious for you, what has been your journey into your spiritual awareness as it is?
Okay, we got to go all the way back because I think my journey into realizing, oh, wait, I'm a spirit incarnate, really is rooted in mental health issues. So, love that you named disability because that's really where my whole story began. I have been battling with depression and anxieties since I could remember. I want to say my first um, encounter with depression that I can remember was in the fifth grade. And so, I went through many, many years of like winging it, right? Loosely being diagnosed by doctors, not really caring for myself. And then I went through, I want to say that I went through my first rock bottom at 25. And I remember just being done. I'm like, either like the story ends here, either I end myself or like I end it. And so I remember very vividly, like I was literally stripped myself naked and I stood in the center of my living room and I was just like praying to God out loud. Now let's pause right there because I had been going to a non-denominational church for a while, and I understood it on a logical level, but also I think my soul was just like spirit isn't really logical. So there wasn't a deep connection that I know I could have with spirituality there. And so I remember stripping myself naked and standing in my living room. I don't know why I was naked. Don't ask. I don't know, but it just felt like the right thing to do at the moment. And I was just like, you know, presenting myself to God. And I remember just screaming out loud at the top of my lungs, just like, please help me. Like, show me what to do. Show me how this gets better because I don't want to live like this anymore. Right. And this is like after like a toxic relationship with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. That's a story for another podcast. We went through 3 years of like a lot of like, he's really my soulmate. We went through a lot of learning, a lot of like ego, meeting intuition not being able to get a word in because the ego was so loud. And so I stood in my living room just like, that was my breaking point. And what followed was the response, right? Life truly offering me very loud opportunities to come to the answers and to remember the God within myself. And so that's when, like, cliche, but this really did happen for me. Like the crystals showed up and like the angel numbers and like all these things that have really been like commodified for, like, we see like people wearing the angel number necklaces, twerking in the club, and like, not that twerking is bad, but like, you know, like just like it's become such a selling point versus like, and it's lost its medicine. But like it was a year-long journey of like truly reintegrating with the spirit within myself and remembering, shit, I am God. Oh my God, I've been God all along, and like the God within me has been malnourished. And also, how do I get to that? And so then came the books and like watching things on TV and like the YouTube videos and the podcast and just like truly like, again, Gemini. So I slightly became a little bit obsessed with like just like the learning of it all, and eventually realizing I wasn't learning, I was just unlearning, right? So it now I'm telling that that's this beautiful story, but it was really gruesome at times, really painful, to be able to witness myself at this part of my life and sort of like not be upset. Like, how could you not know?
Mhm.
Right? How could you not know that this has been you all along? How could you not know to, this is why this happened to end up here, and like cause and effect, and like the power of intention. My God, it was really incredible. And so that was 25. And so I'm about to be 36. It's crazy. It's been a crazy journey. Um, lots of things happened in between. I became a mother a couple years later, which is crazy to say. Got married to that boyfriend who ended up becoming my husband in a really beautiful and healthy way. Shout out to Huey. Became a mother, started this business, went full time as an entrepreneur, started doing readings. My brother passed away, which was also a huge breaking point in my spiritual journey and allowed me to really realize the spiritual gifts that I have. It's been actually insane. But in all, what I'm able to say is me being able to really focus on the power of intention and not just focus on like, okay, how do I communicate with spirit, but more so seeing the spirit in everything,
Mm,
right? Seeing spirit in everything. Spirit is in how I do my laundry. Spirit is in how I talk to my partner. Spirit is in how I parent. Spirit is in how I feed myself, how I walk, what I watch, what I listen to, how I move my body. Has been an incredible shift in perspective. And that's really what I try to like hone in on when I am teaching and when I'm existing, in these spaces that I lead, because I think, again, to your point, like there's so much brainwashing going on. Right. And it's crazy because some people have like posted about me. Oh my God, I'm so grateful. Melanie's my guru. And I would have to like DM them and be like, I am not your guru. Like, I super appreciate the gratitude, but that's not at all what I've ever called myself or what I want to be. Like, um what my tagline, and people know me for this, my tagline is like, remember who the fuck you are. And it's like, I don't want you to focus on me. I'm just the vessel. Like I say, like, we aren't like the power or like the water, we're the faucet, right? And so not so much about me, this is about you. Like, what are you remembering? And like remembering that you and I are one and we are spirit has been super, super, super incredible. The journey just continues.
yeah, yeah. And I love that you ended with that sentence because I think that people often think there is an ending point. There's like oh, okay, I got my certification in this, I'm a
Yeah.
priestess of whatever, and so
Yeah.
I'm done. Like I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest fucking joke, I think. And also a massive red flag to somebody who still has some embodying to do, which is not to say that the gifts they have no value. It is just to say that there is still room for discernment in their own personal journey, which means there's room for you to discern how you are receiving the gifts that they are giving you, and seeing where ego might be living in a way that actually does not apply to you and has nothing to do with what is being shared towards you. And so that grounding, I think, also comes from a place of surrender that does look like yelling in the middle of the living room naked. I can say that for me, all of the moments in which I have had to surrender again and again and be rebirthed again and again have come from catalytic moments that, feels like, wow, why is life happening to me this way? And
Right.
something that Viva always says is like, it's happening for you, not to
Mm-hmm.
you, right? And so sometimes the part of the healing journey that is necessary is being able to go back and say, what was the medicine in this difficult experience? For
Mm-hmm.
me, having to heal from sexual assault and it being a violent one, and the space in which it happened was in a space in which I was developing my ego as this idea of like, wow, am I going to be an entrepreneur? I was working in this entrepreneurial space at WeWork, and it was like, yeah, like absolutely, like I'm a boss bitch, like, in a way, not in like the girl boss way. I was like, no, I'm coming from the mud, baby, this is a whole different energy. And there was this flow and this vibe that was going on, but there was always something that didn't feel enough in that space. And thus there was something in that within myself that also didn't feel like enough. And so things happened, the world turned, I found myself in a moment where I experienced that violence. And not that it was my fault in any way, but even in the spiritual healing through it, what I had to own was what were the parts in which I was not feeding myself, that also led me to be in a scenario and offer myself in a space that was not safe because I was not considering what I needed in that entire journey. And so that was really hard, and it did look ugly, and I did learn how to start hugging trees and, like, standing in the earth and allowing it to take all of that energy from me, and doing all of these things that people like to call woo. People like to call it woo, and to me, even that term is just indicative of your lack of connection to what can be very true, even if it looks different than the way that we have been socialized in this capitalistic colonial framework. You're just not
Exactly.
in tune with it, and that is okay. But like sometimes your journey does need to look a little quote unquote weird. You got to get weird. You have to be willing to explore your energy and your vessel beyond the confines of what is before us. And so I'm curious for you, what has been challenging about navigating personal developments, continued spiritual evolution, and that work in this particular social climate?
I do want to thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your story because I think
Trigger warning. Maybe I'm gonna make sure to say
we gotta share a couple trigger warnings because I also share
yeah.
some shit. But no, thank you for sharing that because I think that speaks to something that's been challenging for me, but I've learned the power of is like the power of inquiry, right? Of self inquiry, and being able to ask yourself, wait, why is this happening for me, not to me? Is has changed my life truly, and I think that's how I've been able to not necessarily like I don't think I have spiritual routines, but I'm always in conversation, right? I'm always in spiritual conversation through what I'm doing, through what I'm seeing, through what I'm observing, through what I'm taking in, and always asking myself, why is it showing up for me in this moment? It could be a bird that flies, onto my balcony. What is this for? Right? Oh, I just found a spider. Like, what's this animal messenger? Right? Like all these things that we take as just like, whatever, right? That humans are conditioned to just take as whatever are so meaningful. And I think in the context of like, how is that important in today's like social sphere and today's social climate? I think that's really important because I think we're in the era of short attention spans. I mean, let's talk about it. Short attention spans and like that lack of focus that I think is necessary to have a spiritual experience or at least realize that you're in a spiritual experience. And so yeah, it was challenging for a bunch of years to like stay in the space when my body wasn't programmed to be in that space. Right. I talk about embodiment. I talk a lot about embodiment now, but because it's been 10, 11, 12 years of like reprogramming my mind, my body initially. I don't think we speak enough about the body and spirituality. And we've done so much work around that at Kripalu. Um, but the body not being able to hold focus or not being able to navigate the truth within because there's so many things that the body has been through, like our body being the site of daily injustices, right? And so that's been a big challenge. And so learning how to not just do what I see, but do what feels good to myself, right? And this is where it comes like, don't follow these fucking internet gurus because they don't know it all. I say that all the time. Like, I'm gonna share this with you, but I don't know it all. I don't know it all. This is what works for me, right? This is what works for me. And so learning what works for me has been super important and being able to like open up spaces to share like, hey, this is what has worked for me. So I'm gonna share it with you. If you want to join, that's cool. If you don't want to, go on your journey, boo. I love that for you. That has been super special because it's been a journey of like returning to the body, remembering, but also about discernment, right? Discerning what works for me and why. Why does this work for me? Let me dig a little bit deeper. Why am I so attracted to this particular practice from this particular culture when I don't even come from this culture? Is this a past life thing? Like, again, the power of inquiry. I think one of my favorite, most important parts of spirituality that is not spoken about enough is curiosity, right? And curiosity, playfulness, like we lose that in adulthood. And I think like I feel like time is speeding up, like somebody's turning up the dial.
Oh, for
It's
real.
it's crazy. Like,
I'm waiting for somebody who knows what they're talking about to explain it to me because I'm
please
already sold.
give
We
me
are moving
give
fast.
me the quantum
Yeah.
explanation because somebody's turning on the dial. And so as somebody's turning up the dial, like we're losing the attention span, we're losing the playfulness. Life is getting harder. There's just so much going on in the world right now, and we have no choice but to like just keep going. And so to be able to like not just sit in stillness, because I think that's a lot of the conversation right now why people aren't attracted to spirituality is because people generally don't have time for stillness.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't have time to sit and meditate. And so when I have a conversation with somebody, especially in my readings, I like to get very practical and see what's for that person. What is spirit, saying this person needs to do? And people are like, "Oh, my spiritual team's going to tell me to meditate, right?" And I'm just like, no. I've told clients like that boxing class you take, set the intention to release energy before you go do that. right? That hot girl walk that you take with your kids, with your baby in the stroller, set the intention that every time you take a step, you're going to release energy because you have denseness in the bottom of, in your bottom half of your body. Like, it's all, again, as you're in communication with your actions and with your behaviors, that's spirituality, right? It's how you are, not what you do.
Yes, yes, I absolutely love it because that has been the way for me throughout the years to really be able to withstand what it is to exist in this body in this time, but still be dedicated to my journey, right? Nothing happens overnight. And once you accept that the journey never ends and you're just going to be learning and unlearning and dying and rebirthing over and over again, you allow yourself to just flow through it without counting how many times it happens or judging what it looks like each time it happens. And even without judging what it looks like each time it happens, when you allow yourself to integrate what you are learning at each fold, even if you only integrate a little bite at a time, the next time you're integrating something else, you might be like, oh, okay, I'm not having to relearn that one little thing that I learned, but I'm learning this new thing. And now that I reflect, that thing was present in that last time, but I was not in the awareness and mindset to address that at that time. That doesn't mean you're slow. That doesn't mean you're not an A+ star healer student person. It just means it wasn't the time for that layer to be the layer that needed to be touched. And so in our unraveling, like and going back to Kripalu, we did this thing where we were calling like deathing and like allowing for certain labels and things that we carry to die. That was a bit difficult for me too, because in the social climate where I always say, yeah, I'm a daughter of justice, and that has been my whole life. That has nothing to do with spiritual titles or, oh, and this lineage such and such has my head. Like, none of it has nothing to do with that. It is actually true of a deep passion that I have always had for speaking truth to power that I didn't understand. And before it was world issues, it was whatever was happening in the household. And, I was the youngest child for a long time. And I'm sure it looked like I was just like the bratty younger sibling. But sometimes it really was like I would feel this fire and I would cry all the time because I didn't know how to really process those emotions and properly direct that energy. But as I started to get older, finding my voice as an artist and putting that energy in my work felt like exactly who I was, what I needed to be. And, be living in a Black body, right? Who is living under this fold of this like Latine community, whatever that means, right? Because Latinidad is not a race, it is a community and a mix of an ethnicity. I feel like that needs to be said over and over again. So I say it every chance I get. Latino is not a race, right? So, but being under this fold for me, like, I felt like, oh yeah, now I've come to like, it's about these identities and being representative of these identities in this way. And then in our work in Kripalu, it's like, nah, honey, there's more grinding down of that pepper. It's not even about those titles and who you are. It is actually just about what is pure light consciousness that needs to come through you. And you happen to represent these bodies. And so perhaps the ways in which you are showing up will speak to these communities in a particular way, will speak truth to the justice that they deserve in a particular way. But you do not need to carry and hold on to all of the baggage and be the champion for things that you don't even really know the roots of beyond your own experience. So what does it look like to coexist rather than to try to center yourself in an existence based on a title has been for me like the real journey here, the challenge of like, okay, I am not a good social justice warrior, quote unquote, because I am leaning less into those intersections in that brand way. I'm living it in a different way. And whenever that conversation comes to the fold, I can speak to it authentically and coming from a place of pure light consciousness and not a place of, well, this is what we believe. Or when we say Black Lives Matter, this is the branding and all of the checklist of what that is supposed to mean and how I'm supposed to hold that. And so I'm following that checklist. No, I'm following myself. And if that checklist does not have an intersection for me or a space to hold me and my truth, then actually that checklist needs to be questioned because my existence is rooted in a truth. I'm not making this up. So yeah, that I think that I wanted to share that because I do think that that is also part of what the social climate is challenging people to do, is to release these labels and these titles, and they don't know what to do with that, especially people who literally have built brands on top of being able to say, I'm a Latina owned, or I'm a Black owned, or Asian owned, like, and it's like, yes, you are that, and I can see that when I see you. You don't even need to say it. What is past that? What are you offering deeper than who you are? Though yes, we want to celebrate that we are living in a time where who you are existing in the space is special in a white male dominant space. But let's go deeper, because that invitation to go deeper is also personal.
What a journey to be a light cosmic consciousness wrapped in this body that is political,
Yeah.
right? It's just so incredible. Thank you for sharing that, because that's what I was thinking all along. Like that's the journey. Is like, how do I express myself authentically? Which authenticity is something that's always spoken about. Who's authentic and who's not authentic, especially in spiritual spaces. But like that's the journey. Is like constantly being in this self inquiry and being able to express yourself as this light cosmic. Like this is who I am in the interior, and this is who you are as well. But also holding the nuance of like, but I'm a Black woman, but I'm a Latina woman, but I'm a white woman, but I'm an Indian woman, right? Like just so incredible when you're able to observe and exist with patience.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew, right? Let's receive a breath. you
Shout
know,
out to Iset.
Shout out to Issa. You know what I mean? Like, but it is that. And I think breathing, I just want to tack that on the tail of what we're talking about. We need to remember to breathe through all of this, because sometimes
Please.
all of the feelings and emotions that come up in a moment are meant to come up. And the breath is not to suppress it. The breath is actually to take it and pick it up and throw that shit out in somewhere else, right? To be reincarnated into something else, whether that is your consciousness or somebody else who needs to receive that energy so that they can be knocked into their self-awareness. But get it out of you. Don't hold on to those things. Breathe.
As somebody who teaches breath work, thank you. Because like I often, like even before I start teaching it in anything that I'm doing, I'm just like, I bet you're not breathing correctly. And people are just like very defensive. Like, what do you mean? And then I teach them and they're like, oh shit, I was not breathing correctly. And breath is really everything. Not only is it this mechanism that's able to move and shift energy, especially as we're in this world that's like constantly turning, as somebody's turning that dial. But it's the animating force, right? Breath is prana, it's life force energy. So being able to like use this free thing, it's a free healing. You don't got to pay $200 for the Reiki session when you could just breathe for 3 minutes a day. Is really important. Thank you for touching on that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I would love for you to share any advice for people who are wanting to connect to spirit, whether that is their own life force energy, whether that is an ancestor that has passed on. You have a lot of experience in a lot of these intersection of what we mean when we say spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious what advice you have with people who are wanting to connect with spirit but struggle with their human obligations. What techniques do you use? What do you recommend? Any wisdom that you are willing to share?
Yeah, so to like double down on what I shared earlier about like always being in conversation, I think people have this misconception that they have to escape human obligation in order to connect spiritually. Like they have to set aside a special time. And like, yes, that is the ideal for you to sit and meditate and pray and pull your cards and do whatever you got to do that helps you connect spiritually. But sometimes we don't got it like that. Right. And I get that. And so the reminder stands that like connecting with spirit isn't something that you do, is something that you are. Because there are people, I'm gonna tell you right now, there are people who do sit in meditation for an hour a day and then they go outside and they cuss people out.
Yeah.
And so what's it for, right? What are you really connected to spirit, or is it again for show? Is it a performance that you're doing either for the outside world or for yourself to convince your ego that you're actually doing something when really you're not doing anything? And so I think the most important part is to just first realize that you are a spirit incarnate, that God lives within you. And just with that realization, you start to treat yourself differently, right? You start to treat your mind, your body, your spirit like the sacred vessel that it is. It's starting where you are with what you have. Breath work is a great way to do that. For anybody listening right now, I offer free resources everywhere on Instagram. I have these free sessions on Friday mornings where we're teaching breath work. I have free breath work on YouTube, and there's so many other resources. It doesn't have to just come from me, but like breath is one of the most beautiful, important. Like we do it all the time anyway. So what if we set the intention to do it in a different way, or do it deeper, or like try to reach different parts of our body with that breath is a really beautiful way to do that. And again, using what you have. Like you don't have to have the sage and the palo santo and the no, anything can be ritualized. Literally anything can be ritualized. You want to do, people are always like, how do I set a new moon intention, a full moon intention? Full moon is for releasing, right? And I'm like, uh-huh. People are like, and the new moon is for setting intentions, right? And for manifesting. And I'm like, yeah, but we're also always manifesting. And so people are like, what do you mean? And I'm like, your decisions matter. Your
Mhm.
decision to say something, to do something, to act in a way is what's manifesting your experience next. If you go outside and you curse somebody out, you're manifesting that the rest of your day is going to be shit. Right? If you go outside and you say a compliment, you offer a compliment to somebody, you pick some garbage up and you throw it on, in the garbage can, whatever, you're creating beauty. And so you're calling in more beauty. And so just like, again, reframing all these like very colonial, white supremacists, like manifesting, releasing, and just knowing that your day is a ritual, right? Your life is a ritual of intention. um, that is going to, that perspective alone is going to help you start speaking intentionality as a language versus something that you can purchase for yourself. And so yeah, we don't have to escape our lives. Our lives are the spiritual ritual.
Period. I love that. And I would like to add as a button to that, that for those who are like, well, I got an attitude, I got a big mouth, I don't got that
Me
come
too.
with that energy, I invite you to sit with that energy and ask yourself what
Mhm.
the roots of that energy are. But the biggest thing in all of the journeys and all of the deaths and rebirths that you will have is forgiveness. And
Mm,
I feel like forgiveness is also not really a practice in a colonial capitalistic society, because
yeah.
punishment, right, like crime and punishment, or this idea of failure, right, is so deeply put upon us that we have a hard time saying, all right, I'm gonna try it. And then
Yeah.
when I quote unquote fail, I'm gonna do it again. What Aaliyah said, if at first you don't succeed, right? Okay. Like that energy is really the one to tap into. Like if you are struggling, if all of the layers of what you are feel too dense for you to get through to that life force energy, I promise you that there is no layer upon you that cannot be broken through. That is a myth. There is nothing about what you have experienced and lived through, or the body and identity that you have to carry, that cannot be transcended through the light that is within you. But you have to be willing and vulnerable enough to go within and understand that there is no failure in that journey. There is just learning. That every time you learn something about yourself that is difficult, you are invited to the opportunity to make a different decision. And that the spiritual journey is just that, it is a series of decisions that then create and transmute energy and do things to you that then make room for even more decisions to come through that you can make. And that is the journey. So you have to forgive yourself, especially for people who are like, oh, I'm a bad person, or I've harmed other people in this way. Like, I believe in restorative justice, I really do, but that has to come from an authentic self forgiveness in order to move forward, even when those who you might have harmed do not forgive you yet, because they
Mhm.
also are invited in their own journey to heal. Which is not to say that there aren't ways in which you have to like answer to what you've done, but there is nuance. And so I think the lack of nuance in a society that says you're right, you're wrong, you're good, you're
Yeah.
bad, really discourages people from saying, let me get a little weird, let me go hug a tree. Go hug a tree and see what that
Yeah.
energy feels like for real. Like,
Yeah.
for real. Because I was one of those people that I'm
Preach.
like, I don't know that I'm a tree hugger. Like, I love the land, but I'm not hugging a tree because that's not gonna do anything, until I started hugging trees. And then I was like, damn, shorty, I know your whole life and your history, and like, you know what I mean? Like, I be talking to the trees. Like, I'm sure people are gonna listen and be like, wow, Julissa
What
has really
the
gone
hell?
off the deep end, but deeply into myself, unraveling into something that is bigger than what society has placed upon us. And it doesn't need to look like hugging a tree for you. It could look like something else, but just be embodied and forgive
Preach.
yourself for what past embodiments you have had. And that, it, to me, is a big, impartment of my wisdom at the end of this episode. So, Melanie, thank you so much for your time. Tell us, where can we find you? Do you have anything coming up that you would like to shout out? How can we stay connected?
Yes, you can find me at melaniesantos.co.co. That is my website. That is also my Instagram. That is also my TikTok. I make it real easy for folks. Things that I'm looking forward to. Ooh, I am so looking forward to storytelling as a means to teach. I've been teaching at folks for a very long time, and I'm very looking forward to like creating really beautiful, just like raw pieces of art that get to continue to tell stories. I'm continuing this series that I'm doing, so that's going to be on my Instagram and on my my TikTok and everywhere. Looking forward to folks engaging with it as like ways to start these conversations, right? And I'm very, very much looking forward to launching a almost like my own Netflix Who, okay, like my own like episodic series where I'm really diving into sensitivity and the power that that we hold as sensitive beings in a world that, like, yes, wasn't built for us, but like we were built for this world. And so, very much looking forward to creating that very soon.
Yes, I love that. I look forward to catching all of that work. And I would like to just let the people know, like, Melanie's work, very sacred, very
Thank
pure
you.
light. The journey and the unraveling over the years has been an honor to witness.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah, so really, y'all, like, this is a pure recommendation here, like, and not everybody's for everybody, but if you feel called to check out her work, or like, do it. It's a trusted space, like, Julissa verified. I'm putting the stamp on it.
Absolutely.
You can follow us at Ladies Who Bronche across platforms, and you can follow me at Julissa. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and until next time, Bronche.